Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this webinar on getting started with OCS360. Um, it's only a quick one this morning, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them in and we'll get them at the end.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar. Today we will have a look at how to get started with OCS 360. Let's look at our agenda for today. We are going to start out by explaining what OCS 360 is. Then we will talk about the requirements for OCS 360, what software versions, what products, what firmware versions, and what you need. And there will be demonstrations throughout, and we will finish with a Q&A session. OCS 360 is a new cloud service from Horner. The whole goal is to make it as easy as possible to send data to a Horner cloud from a Horner controller, and the functions that are included are data recording up to 5 years, dashboarding and visualization, as well as remote alarm annunciation and notifications, and some more features that will be coming in the future as well. Now, to kind of demonstrate visually what we are talking about in terms of the way data is being sent to the cloud from OCS, we use a special version of MQTT for the OCS to push the data up to the OCS 360 cloud through an MQTT broker server. Now, most of the data will be published by the OCS. In other words, it will be processed data and other machine data that is native to the OCS. But there can also be some data that comes back in other direction from the OCS 360. Maybe some set points or maybe some manual overrides. And getting variables up to the cloud could not be easier. All you need to do is go to your program variable table and check a checkbox next to each variable that you want to send to OCS 360. Now let's talk about the requirements. Because this is new, you will need Cscape 10.1, and this is the version you are going to need next. You are going to need either a Canvas or Prime controller, and that controller is going to need a firmware version of 17.10 or later. And then, since your OCS is going to be pushing data to the OCS 360 cloud, which is over the internet, you are going to have to make sure that there is a path for the data to get into the internet, whether that is over wired connection, a Wi-Fi connection, or a cellular connection. It does not matter as long as the OCS has internet access. And then the OCS 360 is a web browser based service. So you are going to need a web browser, whether it's on your computer or your mobile phone. You can look at OCS 360 dashboards from your phone as well. For our demonstration, we are going to go to Cscape, where we have created a regular application. This is a demo application so customers can use it if they choose. What we have here is just two variables here on the screen. We have got the pressure variable, which is an integer from 0 to 100 pounds per square inch, and we have a temperature, which is a floating point variable, and we are going to send these two variables to the OCS 360 cloud. Now, for the demonstration purposes, these are just regular global variables that are not tied to any particular real-world analog input or anything. In your application, you would have a combination of variables that are real-world inputs as well as internal variables that have been used in your program. On the right here, we have OCS 360 status information that is just included with OCS 360. You will notice over here we have a clear certificate button. That is something you should never have to use. But if you have communication problems with OCS 360, one of the options is to clear the certificates and power cycle the unit. So when you press this clear certificate button, what happens is the push button is pressed, and then one of the bits in the OCS 360 control word that is part of the OCS 360 status gets set, and that causes the certificates to be clear. And then it kind of goes through a negotiation period again with the certificate. So how do we actually get these two variables or any other variable that we have in our program up to the OCS 360 cloud? Well, let's go into our program variable window here. Let's give it some more space on the screen here so we can see it a little better. So let's open up global variables, and we are going to scroll down to these two variables we were talking about: pressure, which is an integer, and temperature, which is a real value. And then we also have a variable called OCS 360 stat, which is tied to the OCS 360 status registers structure, so that we have all the status information available to us very easily. So the only thing that we have to do is get the temperature and pressure up to the OCS360 cloud is to go over here to this new column called OCS360 and check this checkbox. What happens there now is that these two variables, since we have checked them, have been added to the default group of data that is pushed to the OCS360 once per minute. Let's go ahead and close down our variable window and head over here to our project navigator. And if we have a look under networking, at the bottom we will find OCS360. So let's double click here, and sure enough this is our OCS360 configuration in our default group, which is a published data. You will see that pressure and temperature have been added here, and they will be published every 60 seconds. Because this is a Horner unit talking to a Horner cloud, we should be good to go. Now, one other thing we need to check, since we are going over the internet to talk to OCS360, we are going to need to make sure that our hardware configuration for our Ethernet port that we are using has a valid gateway and a valid DNS server. The gateway is the address on our local network. Here that gets us out to this internet, and then the DNS server. This particular one is Google DNS server that will allow the OCS to find OCS360 using the RUL. We do have to make sure that we have a gateway and DNS server properly assigned. We typically always use either 8.8 or 8.4, an external DNS server, and that always seems to work the best. Both are from Google. That should be all we need to do to start communicating to OCS360. We will go ahead and download this project to our OCS. The next thing we are going to do is make a note of the MAC address of our OCS that we are going to be adding to OCS360. And there are a couple different ways you can do that. We are going to do that from the system menu under network, and this happens to be a prime unit here. You will see that the MAC address is located right here, so we are going to make a note of that because we will need that when we sign up for OCS360. We are back in the OCS360. The next step is to add our OCS as a device in OCS360 under our account. We are going to go to Entitles and find Devices. There are none yet. Let's hit the plus sign, and we need to give it a convenient name. Let's call this Epoxymatic. That's the name for the machine, and this is where we need to type in that MAC address. Let's continue that on, hit confirm MAC address. We will add that controller, so it adds it, and it is not yet active, so it is going to start by showing inactive. Let's just power cycle our controller with the program in it. You can see our certificate status is 8193 immediately. We want that to go down to 0. Let's go ahead and get some data that we can view here. Now we are publishing data and our certificate status is 0. Let's input some data to the temperature as well. This is what we want to see. We want to see our OCS control at 1, our certificate status at 0, and we want to see our publishing count incrementing up. Let's go take a look at what things look like in the OCS360 side of things. We are showing active here, and this is what we want. If you're not getting update here on from inactive to active, one thing you can try and do is hit the refresh button, and OCS360 will refresh that status. Now if we want to take a look at the latest data that has been transmitted from the OCS, we simply click on the device and make sure we have got the latest telemetry selected, and then we can see the latest values that were published by the OCS. That concludes our webinar for today. Thank you so much for listening, and the Q&A session will begin shortly.
Okay, so nice and short introduction to it this morning. We will be continuing on with OCS360 videos for the next coming weeks. So if you do have an interest in this, then the registration for those is up already. Okay, I don't see any questions on that this morning. So thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you again next time. Have a good day.